Welcome, everyone. Today is March 23rd, 2022, and I call this meeting of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to order. Member Nair is excused, and all other members are present this evening via video conference. We would like to thank Pablo Real for his 18 years of service on the Water Authority Board. He is a great asset to the board and wish him the best. With that being said, we'd like to welcome Trustee Gilbert Benavides to the board. I don't know if he's here and if you'd like to say a couple of words or not, but welcome aboard, and we'll try to figure out WebEx the best we can.
Can I take just 1 minute to introduce
myself? Sure, absolutely.
There's an echo. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, so yeah, I'm Gil Benavides, and Pablo Real is the former trustee in the Village of Los Ranchos. I was recently elected, and so the mayor appointed me to be on the board. I'm a professional engineer. I retired from Sandia Labs after about 39 years of developing components for our national defense. And of course, I live in the Village of Los Ranchos, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Welcome aboard, and I'll definitely have to give Pablo a call. We just really appreciate his years of service. I also want to mention that I know Ms. Nair isn't on this meeting this evening, and I was anticipating that she would be, but as you all know, she has decided to put her resignation and kind of move on to the next phase of her life, and I just really want to thank her too for her service to the city of Albuquerque and obviously to this board. Just being a person of color, the first woman CAO of the city of Albuquerque, I just really give her a lot of kudos for the hard work she did and the real changes that she's brought to the city of Albuquerque. So thank you, Ms. Nair, even though you're not here. Next, I'd like to move on to the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. And if we can all just bow our heads for a second and really, keep in our prayers, obviously, our good city and some of the tragedies that we've been faced with recently, and then obviously the people of Ukraine. And with that, if Commissioner O'Malley, you are who I can see on the screen, so if you would do the pledge right after. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope I remember the pledge. Okay. Moment of silence first, right? Okay. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the, oh gosh, this is going to happen. I knew it.
To the Republic for which it stands.
Oh my God.
One nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
I just keep having these senior moments.
Oh, don't worry about it. I think we're all like that when we get put on the spot. It's like, where's the script, even though we know it? So
well, anyway, it's a very short pledge.
Thank you, Commissioner. We all had your back. So next item we have is approval of the minutes, and I make a motion to approve the February 9th, 2022 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner O'Malley. Miss Luz, if you can call the roll. Ms. Carrion, appreciate it.
Councilor Feeblecorn?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. Next, we have proclamations and awards. There are none this evening, so we'll move on to public comment. As previously stated, public comment was accepted prior to the meeting by email. Is there anyone, Ms. Carrion, signed up to speak?
No, we don't have speakers.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to announcements and communication. Our next scheduled meeting will be April 20th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Via video conference. Customer advisory vacancy. There's a vacancy on the Technical Customer Advisory Committee. If board members have any nominations, please direct them to the online application on the Water Authority's website at www.abcwua.org. Would really appreciate it. I think we made this announcement at our last meeting as well. So if you know of anyone, please direct them to the website. Next, we have introduction of legislation. We have item AR 22-8, and this is authorizing an agreement for water and sewer service for Cottonwood West Shopping Center. Mr. Chris Cardena.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is an introduction for a development agreement for what's known as Cottonwood West Shopping Center. Its development located on northwest corner of Coors Boulevard and 7 Bar Loop. It happens to be within the city of Albuquerque city limits. It's for a commercial retail development. The project's in pressure zone 2WR of the Corrales trunk, and the developer is going to have to install water and connect to existing sewer to get service for the project. And the developer will also be required to pay the utility expansion charges and water resource charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to R22-9, and this is authorizing the approval and continued support of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation storage of fire and Paramount water and allowing said water to be stored in the Water Authority's space in the ABQ Reservoir. And this is Mark Kelly, and I want to apologize to, I had a senior moment as well as not Cardena, it's Cadena, the last speaker. So next we have Mr. Mark Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board. I'm still getting some feedback. There we go. Today we're going to talk about prior and Paramount water storage in Authorizing Reservoir. A little history. Authorizing Reservoir was constructed in the 60s. And it was authorized for San Juan Chama water storage in the 80s. The elevation that was authorized for San Juan Chama water storage is 6,220 feet. As I'll get into a little bit more in detail later, we are working to increase that to 6,230 feet, so an increase of 10 feet. And we are doing that because it was authorized by the Water Resources Development Act of 2020, called WRDA 2020, and it allows for native water storage as well as San Juan Chama storage. Just upstream of Authorizing Reservoir on the Rio Chama is Alvado Reservoir, which provides native water storage. And there is a urgent need for some prior and Paramount water to be stored in Authorizing now, because Alvado is going to be undergoing dam repairs for the next 3 years. So we're working with the Bureau of Reclamation to find a place to store the prior and Paramount water that is administered by the Bureau of Reclamation for the 6 Middle Rio Grande Pueblos, for them to store it in Abiquiu because they will no longer be able to store it in El Vado due to construction. The dam construction will include replacing the steel faceplate on the dam. It'll be replaced with a membrane cover. And during this time, the reservoir needs to be drained very low, and no storage will be able to occur for the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District or for the prior and Paramount water for the 6 Middle Rio Grande Pueblos for the next 3 years. Next slide. There you go. In addition to the faceplate being repaired, there is also going to be work done on the spillway. And the spillway is that trough out to the left that I think kind of looks like a fun slide, but it's a huge spillway that prevents the dam from encountering any problems when it gets completely full. So that work is also planned to be done. In Water 2120, we have Policy I, which is to protect and enhance storage of native and San Juan Chama water. And this agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation to store native water in Abiquiu definitely meets that policy of protecting and enhancing storage of native and San Juan Chama water. So when WRDA got passed, it got put into Public Law 116-260, and that gives us the authorization to both store native Rio Grande water, that's water that is normally running off into the Rio Grande and flowing in the Rio Grande, as well as San Juan Chama water. So we are able, through WRDA, to add the additional native water that we have, that if we have rights to it, to store them both in Abiquiu. This will be able to let us to maximize operational usage for the water authority, as well as others that may need to store native water in Abiquiu, such as the Bureau of Reclamation in this case. The WRDA 2020 authorized an increase in the total volume that is able to be stored in Abiquiu. This will require 10 feet more of space. The Water Authority has been working to acquire all the easements to move up those 10 feet. We've spent over $680,000 to date on some of the smaller land holdings, and we've spent over $2.3 million to acquire the easements from Ghost Ranch up there. So in WRDA 2020, there's no change in the way that sediment is going to be calculated. Like I said before, native Rio Grande water and San Juan Chama water will both be allowed to be stored. We have current storage agreements that have been approved by the board for places like the Rio Chama Acequia Association, the Bureau of Reclamation, an environmental pool, City of Santa Fe, and the Pueblo of Okeawinge, for them to store San Juan Chama water. And now with WRDA being passed, if we can get all the approvals done, they will also be able to store native water in Abiquiu as well. And looking forward for the Water Authority, we could store existing or future native Rio Grande water rights in Abiquiu once we get all of the permissions from the Army Corps of Engineer and change in contract. We could store relinquishment credit water there, and depending on our approval from the state engineer of permit 4831, we could also be able to store flood flows. This would work operationally to only store when flows are exceeding the senior water right demands downstream. So we can't store any native water that that others have a right to downstream. And it's a good idea for us to and others to store these this native water in Albuquerque. There's less transit losses to get it down to the Middle Rio Grande from Albuquerque as compared to El Vado. And operationally, we also must, as always, adhere to the Rio Grande Compact. So what's next is we're working on implementation of WRDA, amending the Army Corps of Engineers who run the dam at Albuquerque, amending their water control manual. We're working with them to amend our contract for storage, as well as for to do all the environmental work to ensure that no endangered species are being harmed by this change. We're working on acquiring the last little bit of easements to be able to use that 10 feet more of storage. And we need to talk to the Office of the State Engineer to obtain a storage permit for that native water. And this is all coming together with a temporary storage request from the Bureau of Reclamation for that prior and Paramount water starting this summer. Next slide. So the resolution requests the board to allow the executive director to enter into an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation to store the prior and Paramount water in the Water Authority space in Albuquerque, as well as to enable him to amend the contract with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I will stand for the question.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner O'Malley?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are the easements along the shoreline? Is that what we're requiring?
Madam Chair and Vice Chair O'Malley, correct. The easements are to allow that additional shoreline that may have water on it in the future with this increase in volume.
Okay. And then on the issue of senior water rights, are we talking about 319 something water rights? Is that that's that part of these senior water rights? Is that what you're referring to?
Madam Chair and Vice Chair O'Malley, you are correct. The senior water rights that others have for downstream uses must always be kept whole. So the Rio Chama Sequi Association is just downstream of Albuquerque Dam. They have a flowage water right, and we could never store water whenever they are needing that water. So these are things that the Office of the State Engineer will likely put into the permit for use, but you know, they can't do that. We cannot do that according to water law.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any additional questions? It looks like Councilor Feeblecorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow the conversation that you mentioned. There's a study on endangered. Is there any documentation or research into impact on additional wildlife who aren't endangered at the moment?
Madam Chair and Councilor Feeblecorn, I do not believe that the environmental assessments look into the assess wildlife besides those endangered and threatened species, the listed species. What I can tell you is, though, that in general, things that affect the river that would hurt the endangered species or not hurt the endangered species will be beneficial for all the species that are present.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Feeblecorn?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. I just want to say, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this later on in terms of some other agenda items, but I just want to mention that, you know, the Water Authority has just really done an outstanding job over the years in terms of, you know, just the purchase of the reservoir, what we've been able to do out there, you know, your efforts for re-injection of our water and, you know, solar. I just really want to commend you all for your hard work to really making sure that water is you know, you guys are good stewards of our water in our city, and kudos to the users as well, because I think we've just had, you know, record levels of conserving water, which is something that's later on the agenda, which kind of hurts us at the end of the day, but it's still a good thing. So anyway, with that, I will move on to thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'll move on to R2210, establishing a one-year objectives for the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority in fiscal year 2023 to meet 5-year goals. Ms. Elizabeth Anderson.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board. I think there's still a little echo. Is that better? Okay, thank you. So I bring you to you today for introduction our 1-year objectives and for the Water Authority for fiscal year FY23. This is I'm going to start this presentation by kind of going over our entire strategic plan and talking about how these goals and objectives fit within our strategic planning process. So this all starts, the strategic plan starts with the 5-year goals and objectives, which we'll go over in a little bit more detail in a bit here. But then those fold into the performance plan, which helps us guide our budget process. We do the performance plan annually. This is completed at the end of each fiscal year. The next step on the chain here is the American Waterworks Association Utility Benchmarking Survey, which we do also annually. The benchmarking program allows the utility to benchmark its performance among 25 key performance indicators. So this is a great way for us to compare how we're doing within these metrics that we track for ourselves compared to other utilities of similar size all over the country. The benchmarking program looks at large utilities, small utilities, eastern, western, kind of locationally demographic types of utilities. The next step on this strategic plan is the effective utility management system that we use. This is a program that we use that is sponsored by the American Waterworks Association and a number of other associations, professional organizations, including the EPA. It's a program we've been using for a number of years now, and all of these objectives are reviewed quarterly with management to see how our progress is doing towards those objectives. We also put out a performance scorecard that's on the agenda today, and that's another way that we use to communicate how we're doing on these objectives throughout the course of the year. But these are something that we talk about routinely throughout the year with staff. All of this gets folded into the budget every year, which is coming up here next month. And the customer opinion survey. So if you look at this overall plan, what you see on the right-hand side is sort of all of those quantitative metrics. Then on the left-hand side, it's all of these qualitative metrics, or ways that we're going out and we're seeing how we're doing, how these objectives and how this work that we're doing to better the utility is actually impacting our customer experience. And so we do our biannual customer opinion survey. That's something we'll be doing here in the next couple months. The Technical Customer Advisory Committee is a group that meets monthly to help weigh in on Water Authority policies and other matters that come before the committee. We also use customer conversations. We do these four per year on one topic. So those last year, we did those virtually. This year, we're hoping we can do them in person. We'll see what happens. Usually those take place in the fall. And then our employee expectations, this is the part of the performance process that we have with our staff. So all of these objectives that we've created get folded into our employee expectations, and that's how we kind of trickle down the larger goals to each individual staff member. Each employee meets at least annually with their supervisor to see how they're doing with respect to their objectives and their performance expectations. So this is our overall, okay, so the 5-year goal statements, this goes directly into the goals and objectives. There's 5 goal statements here and in 5 different categories. So we look at, different objectives within each of these categories. So we have customer services, business planning and management, organization development, water supply and operations, and wastewater collection and operations. And then the associated goal statements underneath, but I won't read those each individually. If you want to go to the next slide. The performance measures that we have are measured by goal area. These are ways that we can actually quantify how we're doing within each of these goal areas. And you want to go to the next slide? So within our performance objectives and measures, we have 3 steps. The first step is to identify our performance gaps. The second step is to address performance gaps. And the third step is to develop policy directives from the board through the 1-year objectives. So this is how we continually improve. This is part of our continuous improvement process. Next slide. So rather than going through each objective in depth, I've provided some pictures and talking points for some of the objectives that really stand out. I believe this year we actually have 90 objectives that we're working towards. So it's really a huge effort that goes into each of these and preparing these each year. And all of our staff weigh in on these objectives. Well, not all, but all of the management staff working with their staff. So some of the ones that we have this year in the water supply and operations area are really supportive of drought resiliency. We have goals for aquifer storage and recovery so that we can start pursuing our next aquifer storage and recovery well. Our current well that was constructed several years ago is in operation and it's working great. We want to do another one and continue to be able to bank that water when we have it available. We have an arsenic treatment plant that's currently in design right now, but we also have some goals for operating our current water treatment plants to be, or our current arsenic plants to be even more efficient, and evaluating other technologies that could be used at future plants. So there's some objectives on those areas too. For the Kirtland bulk fuels cleanup, we're in the process of constructing a monitoring well right now, and we'll be collecting samples from that well throughout the coming year. We're also going to be evaluating whether or not we need to be requesting funds from capital outlay to install additional monitoring wells. So those are some objectives that you'll see in there. We also have goals. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a little too fast. We have goals for irrigation efficiencies, helping us work towards our Water 2120 goal of 110 GPCD, gallons per person per capita per day, by 2037. And our zero escape conversions programs, we're pushing very hard to increase the number of people that utilize that program. Another thing that we're doing right now is a water conservative pipeline flushing program using our NODES. It's a new truck that we have that has a filtration system on it. So rather than flushing water to the street, we're able to take water from a hydrant, flush it through this filtration system, and return it directly to a hydrant downstream. That allows us to flush the pipelines like we need to for operations while still maintaining that water in our system. So that's a really exciting project and new piece of equipment that we just got within the last year, and we're excited to be using it. So we have a objective in there for that. We're also continuing our work with the Partnership for Safe Water and pursuing the Phase 4 Excellence Award. Next slide. For goal 2, with the wastewater collection and operations area, We have additional goals for odor control. We want to be working to optimize the amount of chemicals that we put into our system with the goal of having 0 odors emitted while reducing the amount of chemicals that we have. One of the ways that we're doing this is we're using some of the waste product generated from the San Juan Chama drinking water plant, the ferric sludge that we create by removing solids at the plant is actually still usable for odor control. The ferric that's remaining in that sludge has absorption capacity for odor. So we've disposed of a portion of that down the sewer, and we're optimizing the amount that we can do that so that we actually take that chemical that's remaining and reuse it for odor control so that we don't have to add additional chemicals for odor control. We're also looking at where we might want to install more odor control chemical feed systems and just general optimization of that system. The other thing, when there's odors in a system, there's also corrosion happening. So by reducing the odors emitted from a system, you're also reducing the amount of corrosion, and that's a really good life cycle application where you're extending the life of your pipes by reducing corrosion. We have a goal this year to produce at least 25% of the energy needed for the Southside Water Reclamation Plant from our cogeneration system and our solar field that are both located there at the Wastewater Reclamation Plant. So that's our on-site renewable energy goal. We are working with the Office of the Natural Resources Trustee, Maggie Hart-Stebbins, to do a SWRP, which is the Southside Water Reclamation Plant Outfall Minnow Habitat Project. We've raised about half the money required for this project and are going to be seeking additional funds from the River Stewardship Program this year and possibly also from the Water Trust Board. So we're progressing the design of that project and hoping to move into construction and line up the rest of the funding fairly quickly. That's a really exciting project. It's also working with the City of Albuquerque Open Space to install some new trails in the area of the outfall and do some restoration that's going to really benefit that South Valley area as well. And we're continuing our work with the Partnership for Clean Water as well. Next slide. The goal 3 area, the customer services area, we're continuing our rollout of the automated meter infrastructure AMI program. You're going to hear more about it from H in a little bit, but this is a program I believe we've converted between 60 and 70% of our meters to AMI, and we've been receiving Water Trust Board funding for that. So exciting that we're making even more conversions in that area. We'll be completing our customer survey this year. We have new customer service metrics for call quality. We really like how that's working out for the call quality metrics that we've used for customer service, and we're going to increase that and start developing some metrics for dispatch. And we'll also be doing our customer conversations, like I said. Next slide. Under goal area 4, the business planning and management area, we have our rehabilitation and renewal programs. With this, we have $65 million that we'll be expending towards rehab projects. And at least 1 million of this will be going towards high-risk pipes. Also, one of our goals is to implement at least 1 large diameter interceptor project and 1 small diameter sewer rehab project, in addition to having another design completed for the interceptors. We're really trying to push rehabilitation of the sewer interceptors. That's a big area where we're spending a lot of time right now. For the asset management program, we have a number of new objectives where we're going to be tracking metrics. We're going to be completing our comprehensive asset management plan this year. This is something we've been working on for quite some time. It's very exciting. We'll be able to take the data that we get out of that plan for risk and condition and input that into our Maximo system and really begin true life cycle cost accounting. I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in the future. It's something that we're really at the forefront of for the nation on utilities. And it's really exciting to be at the point where we're ready to do it. We'll also be developing some dashboards and whatnot to monitor our progress on those metrics more effectively. And then for the Tahajali pipeline, we have a goal of delivering water by the end of the fourth quarter of FY23. We have our America's Rescue Plan Act projects, which we wanted to, continue to say thank you so much to Bernalillo County for that funding. We have several objectives that are directly linked to projects that are being implemented using that funding, including connecting the municipal detention center to the sewer system through a force main, and removing the need for the wastewater plant that's out there. Also, we'll be working on more strategies for grant loan funding. And for the security area, we continue to do tabletop exercises and countermeasure implementation, and working very hard on cybersecurity using the NIST cybersecurity framework and our annual penetration tests and tracking metrics associated with cybersecurity. We're also at the forefront of cybersecurity implementation for utilities in the nation. Next slide. Goal 5 for organizational development. Almost at the end. This is always such a mouthful presentation. So this is our last goal area. In this area, we have objectives for training. Our objective is to have at least 25 hours of training per employee per year. That's a really important area to keep focusing on. We're also formalizing a plan for remote work options. And under our wellness initiatives, we have objectives for nutrition, for trainings and informational communications to staff on nutrition, physical activity, weight loss, disease and injury prevention. We're also incorporating a mental health objective where we'll be encouraging collaboration with the EAP program to increase mental health awareness. And then our stretching goal, we continue to work to encourage people to stretch to reduce injury hours. And our injury hour goal this year is to maintain less than 2,500 hours per year, which we continue to strive to reduce that and continue to meet that goal year after year. Finally, we're encouraging innovation, which we hope is not just a buzzword. We've been working with the Water Research Foundation Utility Innovation Project to develop the program that they have in place to encourage innovation, and we'll be working on a strategic plan for our own innovation program this year. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? I see Commissioner Quesada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. So am I getting an echo too? I mean, it's good for me because I have ADD, so if I hear it twice, but anyway, some of those things were really great. I think that, the Water Utility Authority always is looking, in the future on how to do water better here. But in my office, we've been doing some research, and we found that, a lot of the agriculture and the farmers tend to be the biggest wasters of water. They still do it the old way where they flood the fields, and I know this is probably more Middle Rio Grande kind of stuff, but is there a way we could partner up to really look at how that water is being used, since it's the water that supplies not only them, but it supplies all of us here in Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque? I'm wondering if there's some initiatives that we can do to do better with that water and how we use that water. I went and met with a farmer that's in the South Valley, and he grows twice the amount of food using only 20% of the water that a normal farmer uses, in our area. And can we, as a water utility authority, maybe the Middle Rio Grande, could come together to start, working on how we better use the water in that industry as well. Because all the other stuff you showed in this presentation was awesome. I really agree with the way you're doing the fire hydrants, because I can't tell you how much water waste we see when that's happening, and a lot of the initiatives that you've done in the past, which are very impressive. But I was wondering if you could kind of follow up with that question. Is there a plan to look at that, or am I the first one to bring that up, or I don't know, Ms. Anderson?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Quezada, that is an excellent question. And I think that's a question a lot of people ask when you see the water use in the Middle Rio Grande. I don't know if I have a good answer for that one. I'd like to see something. I'd like to see something where we could make a difference in that as well. I'm not sure how that would work.
Okay. Well, it's time to start asking those questions. So I appreciate you, but I really think it's time for us, especially in an organization like this where it's city, county, and that we could come together and talk with Middle Rio Grande and see what we could do all together as a community to do better. I don't ever want to stop agriculture. I think it's hugely important to us. I fight for that very hard in the South Valley because I think it's a real way, I think, for an economic driver if we could learn to do it better and properly. And there's organizations that are starting to organize in a way to do that. I know this farmer. I know he's a scientist from NASA, and I know he's super genius. But he has all these really brilliant ideas that I think we can use to be better stewards of our water. As you know, there's always a lot of conversation about development and, hey, that's going to use water and really specifically in my area, right? Everybody's really against development in my area because it's going to use water. And so I guess my argument is it just the Southwest Mesa that's responsible for water, or is it all of us that are responsible for water as we grow and develop? So, those are the hard questions I'm going to ask in my last final 3 years. And I really want to see if we can do better. So maybe we can, on the side note, Madam Chair, we can, start looking at maybe putting a committee together to look at, what the waste is and what the solutions could be, and maybe, put our resources together to really, work on moving that needle. I know it's a big, huge job, but I think if we continue to start moving that needle, we can really get ourselves to a place that, we are the example of how you use water, especially in the Southwest, and especially, us being in this drought. And as you know, probably if we get the drought report at the end of this meeting, it'll take us back to depression that we're going to be in this drought for another, 4 or 5 years. So I think it's something we need to start talking about. I think it's something we really need to start moving forward. I know it's just not on the Water Utility Authority, that it's on all of us. But Madam Chair, I would really like to see if we could get something moving forward on that. Ms. Anderson, thank you for the answer. The best way you could answer that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I can see that Trustee Benavides looks like he rose his hand. Is that accurate?
A quick comment. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? So in regards to your suggestion about putting together a committee to have a more comprehensive investigation of how we use water, which would include groundwater that we use for agriculture, I would be interested because I'm not a big irrigator. I'm a small irrigator. But a couple things to consider real quickly is a lot of that groundwater does go back into the aquifer, and yes, you can do things. There's certain crops you can grow with less water, but if you're trying to keep your cottonwoods alive, you probably need a lot of water, right, in the valley. And if you want pastures, you probably need a lot of water. But there are things that can be done so that you use less water. I mean, we're all, especially like during a drought and whenever they turn the water on for us, one thing I notice is a lot of people don't have their fields are not level, so it takes way too long to water. And when there's a drought and there's very little water in the ditches and the acequias, everybody turns on their gate at the same time, and then it's very wasteful. So you're correct. Things can be done to use less water. So if there is a committee put together, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam
Trustee
Chair,
Benavides.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Sanchez.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Quesada, maybe the place to start would be to invite the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District to make a presentation to the board about how they're conserving water, because I know they have initiatives as well to do that. And
That would be
we should invite them.
That would be a great start, Mr. Sanchez. And Commissioner O'Malley has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am a relatively small irrigator, but we're an area that has senior rights. But you can, for example, if you want to water a large area, you could change to a different system that requires. It's pretty expensive though. You have to have a big tank. You have to have pumps. You have to have filters. If you want to use irrigated water and store it and reuse it. I mean, there's ways to do it. However, as I said, it's a pretty big expense. And I know that there's a lot of irrigators. I live around, across the Authorizing. There's community ditches. I think people are, especially during the drought, we've sort of made a decision that we'll just water some of our trees and then we're going to move it on. If we didn't need the water, we're going to move it further down so that the people at the end who are really growing things can have access to it. One thing about this whole idea of watering, which is interesting because this is part of the Authorizing have become part of the ecosystem, and they've watered the water along the ditches provides water for wildlife, and it keeps certain plants alive and that sort of thing. So, but I think in terms of like watering a garden, a huge garden, there are more effective and efficient ways to do it. I just think that right now it's a big expense to people, and it would, if there was some way to maybe offset that or support that conversion, that might be very helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. So, yes, Mr. Sanchez, I think it would be great just to see if we can get them to do a presentation, and then maybe along with the staff and the people who have indicated they're interested, maybe we can sit down and have a conversation about what that looks like moving forward in terms of a committee. So thank you. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And we have 3 items on the consent agenda, C22-9, C22-10, C22-11. And I would move a motion of approval on our consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Feaglecorn?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Chair O'Malley?
Yes.
Chair
Yes.
Pena?
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada?
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. Next, we have approvals, and we are on item A, R22-5, authorizing an agreement for water and sewer service for La Cuentesta 3. Mr. Cadena.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a second reading for a development agreement for a development known as La Cuentista 3. Developments south of Paseo, east of Unser, and it's for a 248 single-family unit subdivision that lies in pressure zone 4W and 3WR of our Volcano trunk. So developer is required to build some water lines and sewer lines to obtain service to this development. This property was under litigation with a third party when this development agreement was introduced last month. However, since that time, that litigation has been settled, and this development will be required to pay the utility expansion charges and water resource charges. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions? I don't see any hands, so I'd make a motion for approval of R22-5. Is there a second? It looks like Commissioner O'Malley second that? Yes, okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item B, R22-6, authorizing an agreement for water and sewer service for Good Sense Holdings LLC. Mr. Cadena, once more.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a second reading for development agreement for a project known as Good Sense RVs. It is for a new retail facility for RV sales, and it's located at 12505 Central Avenue along Central, just east of Atrisco Vista Boulevard. This property is currently undeveloped within the unincorporated area of Bernalillo County, and actually lies within our pressure zone 6W of the Atrisco trunk. So this developer will have to extend a little water line, a little sewer to get service to this project. And additional extensions and service connections from the existing infrastructure along Central is not going to be allowed. This water line was meant to provide a redundant connection for our Don Reservoir and doesn't provide the level of service for this particular pressure zone and trunk, given that it wasn't designed for that. Additional extensions and service from this infrastructure are contingent upon developer-funded master plan of larger infrastructure like reservoirs and pumps and transmission lines to really establish this part of the system. There are a few developments that have been granted permission to obtain service from this water line, but it's been determined that additional connections cannot be supported. So this development will be required to pay the utility expansion charges and the water resource charges that are in effect. And I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'd make a motion for approval of R22-6. Is there a second?
Second. I can't hear you, but I said second.
There's a second from Commissioner O'Malley. Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I apologize for the feedback. Me and Ms. Carrion are having a tug of war with muting me because I'm getting all this feedback. So hopefully we'll have that fixed by the next meeting. So we're now on item C, R22-7, authorizing the execution and delivery of water project fund loan grant agreement by and between the New Mexico Water Trust Board and the New Mexico Finance Authority and the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority, the Water Authority, in the amount of $7.708271. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the authority. This is a second reading. If you recall, at our last meeting, this loan grant agreement would finance the construction of the conveyance line for the Untitled Chapter of the Navajo Nation. 90% of this $7.7 million will be a grant and 10% will be a loan, and the loan will be paid for by the Navajo Nation. Again, this project will finance a 7-mile conveyance line, essentially, where we will receive water provided by the Navajo Nation. We will treat it and convey it to Tahajli for their use, and they will pay for the commodity charge and the treatment charge. I'd stand for any questions.
Are there any questions, Commissioner O'Malley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to get an update. This is, I think sometimes people, well, just for the public, this is the transmission line. It just basically goes to the first, I believe, well, but all the infrastructure within the village is a separate project. And I'm they've actually been working on that for some time. That's the distribution structure within the village. This is just to get the water, clean water to the village. So, so if you could just give us an update, Mr. Sanchez, as to where things are in the, the project.
Sure, Madam Chair, Vice Chair O'Malley. The design is almost 100% complete. It should be completed by early April. We would then issue an RFP for bids for construction. We expect that to take place early summer and have a groundbreaking by midsummer and have the project underway.
As far as you know, Mr. Sanchez, we are still within budget for that project?
To the best of our knowledge, yes, but we won't know for certain until we have final bids.
Right. I mean, I think that everything's going up so much. I think we were looking at probably 30, in some cases, 30% increase. But okay, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that the Water Authority has done to create these agreements and in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll just add to that. I just really want to congratulate not just the staff and the director here, but knowing that we were just transporting water for so many years out to Hajili, and all the work that was done by Commissioners Quesada and O'Malley to make sure that this happened is just really paramount. Just it's testament to the work that's done at the Water Authority and how coming together we actually did a really, really good thing for the people at To'Hajiilee. So thank you again. With that, I would make a motion to support for approval of R22-7. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Carrion, can you please call the roll?
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones, Counselor Jones. That was a yes. Vice Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
We're now on item D, C-2212, approving an increase of contract 2011-0092 with the Census US Inc. for continued implementation of the advanced meter system. Mr. Hobart Warren.
Madam Chair, members of the board. I'd like to thank you for your consideration for the continued support of C-22-12, increasing the Census USA contract for advanced metering infrastructure. Next slide. The Water Authority is currently about 10 years into its AMI project. And AMI really refers to all the equipment and stuff that we use to get the meter readings directly for our customers. And if you want to look at it another way, AMI is really the Internet of Things for all operational purposes. And as we go through this presentation, you'll see how what started was something to just read meters is now helps conservation, helps operations, and we're getting ready to go into odor control on the wastewater side. Actually smart manholes. We're going to do a pilot study this year where we can actually go and hopefully prevent sewer overflows before they happen by implementing smart covers out there in the system. Next slide. So the Water Authority's current infrastructure, we have 9 base stations that are strategically located throughout the city. We have 129,000 of our 210,000 accounts have already been converted to AMI. The goal is within the next 3.5 years is to have 100% AMI through the entire Bernalillo County, city of Albuquerque area. Last month, you guys partnered with, you approved the New Mexico Finance Authority with an additional loan grant information. This is the second one of that type where we're able to go and add an additional $2 million of infrastructure annually to help speed up this process. Currently, 67% of all the revenue comes through AMI. All of the large meters are already attached with AMI. So, and it just gives us a good output. We're going to hear about a winning story with some of this technology here at the very end of this at the board meeting today. Next slide. So really, why AMI, right? It gives us the access for not only our internal users, but external users to have data, to be able to set benchmarks, to be able to measure, and allows us to come up with innovative solutions for some complex problems that we have out there. And it really promotes our customer service, our conservation efforts, and it increases staff's competency out there to operate the system more efficiently for the ratepayers. Next slide. So if you look through our Water Authority web portal, if you go onto the website, anyone that's a customer can access the Home Connect web portal. If you have an AMI meter, you have instant access to hourly meter readings, you have your billing data, and if you have a problem, you can actually see the same information that our customer care reps are seeing. So there's nothing worse than trying to troubleshoot a problem where, right, you're dealing with apples and oranges. Here, the customer and our CCRs can actually deal with apples to apples and look at the exact same information on the screen and really help troubleshoot. Is it a leaking toilet, or do you possibly have a leak outside? You're able to measure month-to-month comparison. So as some people are looking to save, you'll see in the bottom graph here, I mean, it'll show your progress. You're 216 gallons less than the previous month. How are you doing month to month? Going year to year. You can also set consumption alerts. Okay, I want to know whenever I've reached half of my normal consumption for the month. You can get an email, you can get a text message. If you go out on vacation, you go on a cruise, you can actually get an email that says, hey, I left something running, or the cat came in, turned my water on in the house, I'm having continuous usage, and get somebody out there to check your property. Next slide. As we're talking about going from the customer service to conservation, the graphs on the right represent our last 30 days. We were able to identify 67 high consumption accounts throughout the area. So out of the 129,000 accounts that we've already have AMI'd, we identified 67 of those. We were able to send somebody out before the customer even knew they had a leak, and we were able to save 182,000 gallons a day by being proactive. We've touched base with the other 19 accounts, and they're either working on it or they're trying to get the funding so they can go ahead and fix those leaks. So this is a success story again in conservation, right? We now have access to the data. We can actually measure, right? What's the water lost? What's the water saved? We have hot spots. As we continue this, we'll do what's called a meter district whenever we're 100%. So we'll be able to go do geographic areas throughout the utility and know how much water we're pumping to there, how much water is being billed, and how much actual water loss we have. So we can create heat maps and go in there and look for leaks and actually do repairs to improve the efficiency of the system. We're also able to identify, right, major damage before it happens and save customers unnecessary costs. Next slide. As we talk about improving competency on the system, on the exact same infrastructure, we're now installing pressure monitoring throughout the system. We currently have 155 pressure monitoring systems out there. So if you look at the bottom right-hand graph, it's really a quick representation, basically like a thermometer, where you see it red is a little bit higher pressure, the blue is kind of in our normal operating, and this shows the different pressure zones we have throughout the city. So we can actually identify if we have a major leak, we'll actually see a decrease in pressure, and we can send a crew out there before we're even notified that there's a leak. Or if you look at the top graph, this was an area where we were just over there monitoring on a day-to-day basis, and we started to see the increase of pressure. So we were able to use this map below and start identifying, well, which PRVs and where's the pressure kind of creeping up at, and find a geographic location and do a valve survey. And we found a valve that somebody opened that is actually a cross connection valve from one zone to the other. So by doing that, we were able to go lower the pressure. And most in the past, you would find out a high pressure area by having usually a burst pipe or a leak.
A participant has left the meeting.
So now we're actually able to do it through the automated process. So again, right, we have access, we have additional tools for information, right? It's cost effective. We've already got the infrastructure in place. So we're just leveraging our existing infrastructure. We're getting real-time information. We can compare with historic information. And we've got we got innovation to identify anomalies early, and we get instant feedback whenever we can correct it, right? We talk about that Internet of Things, right? We started off by reading meters. Then we get the information to the customers. Now we're working on conservation. Now we have an increased competency. Now we're getting ready to go to the collection system. So with this one product, we're able to just have multiple facets of the operation system. Next slide. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? I don't see any, but I just want to say this is a kind of a test. Councilor Peebles-Corn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question on the use of the AMI for conservation. I really appreciate the detection of leaks. That is a big part of it. But I'm wondering if there's been any conversations or any thought around using the AMI to provide more direct data to customers, perhaps on bills rather than just online, and also comparing, behavioral comparison so that they know how their water use is stacking up against, their neighbors or the average water use. I find that in other areas where AMI is used, those kind of tools really can have a pretty big impact on conservation. So.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilor Peebles-Corn. Through the web portal I showed on the second slide, through the Home Connect, you can actually do a comparison and get that information. We can compare how am I doing compared to kind of my neighborhood. And whenever we set up that web portal, everybody in the system can get on that, whether they have AMI or not. If they have AMI, they'll get the additional hourly consumption, some of the additional data. If they don't, they'll be able to see their monthly consumption and still set some monthly alerts. So whenever we built that portal, they do have that capability right now to do some of that. And in some of the use case studies, we actually worked with Bueno Foods, and we were able to identify leaks with Bueno Foods. We did a lot of stuff with the Parks and Rec Department, as you'll see. We were able to provide them a lot of that information. So we've worked with Tanawan Golf Course, with Paradise Hills Golf Course on the west side of town. So we have some of our larger customers. We really try to get intertwine with them, give them access to that portal, and they can actually monitor their own consumption use on there. We should, one of the things that I'll bring to our customer service manager and Mr. Morris, our PR, is maybe we need to do another campaign to go, hey, we have 61% of the systems already AMI'd. Hey, jump on here, maybe do some neighborhood competitions, whatever's the best neighborhood. Maybe they get a $5 off their bill or something like that.
Thank you. I love that idea. I was thinking more for residential people, and not everyone is internet savvy or even has internet connection. So I would also encourage maybe looking at a way to include some basic data on bills, just so that information is provided to everyone in the system. But thank you for the really great project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Peebles-Corn. Great comments. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. What is the life cycle of these devices?
I was going to say, Vice Chair O'Malley, the current lifespan, we're guaranteed a 20-year life cycle on the actual battery itself. What we're experiencing through some of the tests, since it's such a low output, we're expecting about 30 years for these devices. So as we finish all these meters, we'll just continue a cycle where we'll have them probably dropping off at probably about 25 to 30 years on average.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any. So great job. I mean, I think in the future, I'd like to maybe sit down and have a conversation too, just about sometimes in communities of color, you know, we tend to have a larger household. And I know our water is measured on a certain amount of people per household. And sometimes I just worry, but I do know that we have some measures in place to help people, you know, pay their water bill. But, you know, I think maybe it's a conversation to be had, just especially now since housing is so difficult. And I know a lot of people are moving in with each other. So, you know, that means that sometimes large families are paying a higher rate just based on the fact that our measuring method is for a smaller household. So just a comment. So thank you. Appreciate it. With that, I would move approval of C-2212. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Ms. Carrion, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fivelcorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti. It dropped off the call. Sorry about that. Commissioner Quesada.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. With that, every time you say I, Commissioner Quesada, I want to say donde. Anyway, we're on item E, C-2213, approving service connection agreement for water and sewer service with JB Holdings LLC at 10,084 Coors Boulevard Northwest. Mr. Cadena.
Hello again, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a service connection agreement for a proposed car wash near the southeast corner of Coors and 7 Bar Loop. And the site is currently vacant, but it's outside the adopted service area within the city of Albuquerque city limits. And pursuant to the Water Authority resolution, which is R513, it's enhancing the water conservation ordinance, the developer agrees to incorporate water conservation guidelines. It's pursuant to the Water Authority water waste reduction ordinance. The developer agrees to incorporate design, installation, and maintenance practices to mitigate water waste. And there's no additional infrastructure requirements really needed to provide service, just routine connections to what's already there. And this obviously approved service connection agreement. As a condition of service, this owner will be required to comply with all of our ordinances and resolutions, plans, and regulations of the Water Authority, obtain concurrent water and wastewater service, and then pay the applicable utility expansion charges and water resource charges. I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I would make a motion for approval of C-2213. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. With that, Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Fivelcorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Chair Pena,
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Malley, I believe has stepped away.
Yes.
Oh, there she is. I just can't see her. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. So with that, we are now out of approvals into item 10, which is other business, and we have OB 2224, the drought update. Mr. Carlos Bustos, if you can give us some good news, we'd highly appreciate it.
I think Carlos is still muted.
Carlos?
Here we go. Hey. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the favorite topic of Commissioner Quesada, so I'll jump right in it and we can talk about drought. We had a good snowpack today, so you know we always appreciate whenever Mother Nature decides to pass through Albuquerque and give us a little bit of snow or rain. And it was definitely a good one. February and March have certainly been good. But I'm gonna be talking about the drought and also some of the 2021 conservation highlights. And then briefly touch on some of the drought measures that we're going to be launching this growing season. And next slide, please. So we've seen plenty of these maps. On your left side, total precipitation, you'll see precipitation for the winter, and you can identify our county. And then on the right side, you'll see precipitation for most of last year. So 2021 was another warmer and drier than normal year for New Mexico. The 2021 average statewide for temperature was 55 degrees, which is about 2.6 above the normal in regards to temperature. This makes 2021 the seventh warmest year on record. Most of the previous 6 warmest years on records have happened in the last 10 years. Albuquerque is tied for the 10th warmest year on record, and it was the 18th driest. The average temperature for Albuquerque in 2021 was 59 degrees, and that's about one degree higher than our normal. Precipitation was rough. We only received 8.1 inches. That's outside of the normal. Just to give you an idea, we typically get on average for the entire Albuquerque area about 10 to 11 inches, and we only had 8 inches last year. We did have some good months, February, May, July, and September. Those were favorable because any precipitation that we get on the ground, it benefits our landscapes, and typically we tend to respond by not watering for a couple of days whenever we do get those events. And nevertheless, we did experience a record warm temperatures, which increased the need for and demand for outdoor usage between October and leading into December. And next slide, please. With that said, we continue to be in drought conditions. 80% of the state is experiencing severe to exceptional drought conditions. Here in the county, we are still showing extreme drought conditions. And nevertheless, our snowpack up in the upper Rio Grande is 106% of the median. And for the San Juan watershed is 114%. So we've had a decent snowpack, which will probably benefit in regards to using surface water this year. We're still on a drought watch declared by this board last year in March 17. And our current UPCD is at 128, which is roughly or where we ended up for the year 2021. We are at 107% of our pumping goal. So we are meeting our goals in regards to managing drought, and our customers are responding. And next slide, please. We tend to plan based on these maps and the outlook for the next 3 months or so, the spring season leading into the summer, is that we're still going to continue to experience above normal temperatures, even though March we did show below normal temperatures. So I think in this case, the meteorologists were wrong about March, and we did have a decent temperature in regards to March, and also the precipitation here in Albuquerque has been somewhat normal. In regards to looking at the next 2-3 months, precipitation is showing below normal, but it's also somewhat spotty because La Nina conditions, even though they're expected to run through the spring, it's showing like they may transition through the summer season. So that's a good thing. Next slide, please. So a little bit of good news. Despite high temperatures and our ongoing drought, the customer demand was almost 1 billion gallons less than in 2020. So kudos to everybody here in Albuquerque and all of us for conserving water and responding to the action call. We continue to move in the direction of where we want to move with customer demand. This year, we updated our EBCD calculator using the Census biennial update of 2020. And because of that, our new census data shows Bernalillo County with a total population of 676,000. And there was a 2.1% growth in the last 10 years. And the method that we use uses a population plus our production to estimate EBCD. And there was a slight change in the amount of people per household from 2.45 to 2.38. So ultimately, our EBCD stayed the same because population changed. It decreased slightly with the new census data for our service area. But the story is that we did conserve 1 billion gallons, which we don't have to produce to meet the demand in 2021. Next slide, please. So you'll see the 900 million gallons conserved, and I keep saying 1 billion, but it's actually 900 million because we tend to lose, unfortunately, some water with leaks and metering inaccuracies, which we hope to capture, and we try to capture as part of our leak efforts and what H mentioned with our AMI retrofits. City parks, we're going to be recognizing them right after this presentation. The City Parks and Recreation Department continues to find ways to conserve water, and our Water Smart Award recipient for the year is going to be them. Over the last 5 years, Water Resources via its conservation program has supported these efforts through irrigation consultations, leak inspections, data analysis and reports, and also via an MOU that allows irrigation surcharges dollars to be used to improve efficiency in parks. We've also received over 500 waterways complaints in the year, which resulted in 360 warnings, hundreds of malfunctions identified, and 54 million gallons saved. We alerted over 4,500 of our top 5 residential customers using the technique that the counselor brought up. We alert customers using AMI data and by letting them know that they're using slightly or a lot above the average of their zip code. We haven't pinpointed to the neighborhood, but at least the zip code is somewhat representative of the area. This program alone, just by alerting them, as you mentioned, Councilor, it does conserve. We ended up conserving 54 million gallons just by informing customers of their high water use. This is a new program I implemented during this latest drought, and we will continue to do this this year. We're monitoring both institutional and commercial accounts now and have saved over 14 million gallons to date via the program of AMI installs, AMI reports, and outside of what H presented, we're also focusing on large users as well to alert them and go identify leak inspections. And some of the parties that we work with really well is with city parks and recs. Altogether, these programs have saved 900 million gallons last year. Next slide. Outside of those savings, we also train about 1,430 customers through our 3 steps to landscape success drought water smart class. We will continue to teach that class. Right now, you can enroll if you haven't participated, and not only you get $20 back, but you'll learn about the 3 steps to landscape success and how to take care of your system, follow a proper schedule, and select the right plants. We also, via the Water Smart Academy, we're training professional landscape professionals in our sector from both the public and the private side. And to date, we've trained almost 247 participants. It's actually more now, but when I did the presentation 3 weeks ago, it was 247. This is a great success story because this is helping us shape the culture of how we envision a landscape management here in Albuquerque. Next slide. So jumping into what we're going to be rolling out this year, we're going to continue with our double waste, the double fees for waterways. We're going to continue with the public education classes. We're going to continue with a strong public messaging and communication. We're also adding more seasonal compliance personnel. We're updating our Sarascape rebate. We're launching a new program for HOAs, homeowners associations, and the common space, and working with neighborhood leaders. We're also going to be working with our low-income customers that are enrolled in the customer service low-income credit program, and we're also going to start a multifamily outreach. So I'll talk a little bit about those in the next couple of slides. Next slide. So the first and the biggest is where the last time we updated our Sarascape rebate was in 2013 during our last 3-year drought event. And we felt like after some analysis that we did, and because the cost of supplies and labor and material has increased, and we want to continue to encourage and be in the forefront of encouraging customers who don't need a non-functional turf and areas of grass that are not needed in their commercial and residential, industrial, institutional spaces, etc., to move the needle towards getting off their lawn. So this year we're going to be launching a huge campaign. We updated our rebate from $1 to $2 per square foot. Little bit of background. To date, we've converted 4.7 million square feet in the last 15 years. There's more than happened before that, and we're estimating at least another 3 million square feet that were converted. There's also what we're seeing is that customers who participate end up reducing their water use by 30%. And to date, this program has conserved 1.8 billion gallons. So if we will have all along that we have converted in place, our demand will be 1.8 billion gallons higher. So we're counting on this program. Our goal is to convert 600,000 square feet per year. And with that goal in mind, we're going to be saving close to 1 EPCD after the 3rd, 4th year. Next slide. We're launching a program for HOAs. Our goal is to work with HOAs so we can identify via an audit their issues and see if there's any updates that they can do to their irrigation system or their landscape. The intention is to work with the leaders and the landscape committee and their professional landscape companies so we can put together a 5-year plan to improve these areas, holding their hands, helping them identify sources and resources, and basically acting as a liaison consultant, if you will, to these leaders so we can be available to offer these resources and put a package together and providing some incentives so we can improve the way they use water in HOAs. We've identified almost 80 HOAs that just by doing some analysis, they can potentially conserve almost 56 million gallons in the first year if they were to just do some minor adjustments. Next slide, please. We're also going to be doing multifamily apartment audits. There's a lot. We got about 7,000 accounts and multifamilies. In our definition, it means that you got at least 2 or more units, or it can be like a casita in the back, or it can be an apartment complex that has 400 units. So just to give you an idea, here in Albuquerque, we work with an apartment that was built in 1992. It's called Opaloma Apartments, and this is a nationally recognized case study now. And we went in there and we replaced all the aerators and shower heads. And we did some work outside. They have like 8 acres of turf to like fix their pressure, replace old nozzles with more efficient ones, and some check valves and spray bodies. And the first year they saved 5 million gallons. By the second year, they have gotten back their investment of $80,000 via our incentives and the savings in their water bills because of the work that they did. So we want more of this. We have another 72 multifamilies identified that were built in the 90s, and that's going to be our target outreach so we can work with those folks. Some of them fall under HUD, so we're looking forward to targeting those folks first because we find that most likely they're going to have the most need because of pressure and resources, etc. Next slide. And finally, we're going to be outreaching to the customers that are enrolled in our low-income credit program. Right now, we have about 900 customers that receive a $20 credit each month. Of course, not all of them are showing high water use. We've identified, out of those 900, we've identified almost like 200 customers that exceed their usage, their winter average at least by 3 times. It could be that they have an issue, maybe not. Maybe they have a landscape that they need to water. And nevertheless, we're going to be focusing first on working with those, and then ultimately we want to do an outreach to all those customers so we can provide some audits, provide free aerators, shower heads, and conservation kits for indoor and outdoor, and hopefully help them not only via the credit, but helping them long term to help them manage water as well. I think this is my last slide. Yep. And I stand for question.
Are there any questions? Councilor Feeblecorn, followed by Commissioner Quesada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Booth, for this great presentation. I should say we got this year on a conservation program for small businesses in Albuquerque, and Mr. Bustos is just an amazing resource for the community, and so thank him for all of his work. My question revolves around the low-income credit customers. It's my understanding that to qualify for that credit, you have to do a separate qualification process with the utility rather than accepting, say, LIHEAP or other low-income qualifications from other utilities. Is that the case, or am I misinformed?
Madam Chair, Councilor, I hope I say your last name correctly. Feeblecorn? Does that sound right? I don't have the answer for that question. Customer service are the ones that screen the applications and get the folks enrolled in the program. We're just, on our side, we're just going to get a list of folks that are enrolled in that program and work with them and do the outreach. But I can find out the answer.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm concerned if we're making them do a separate application process. Low-income folks are already having to do an application process through the electric utility, through the natural gas utility, through the water utility. And so I'm just wondering if there's ways that we can partner with those other utilities to take one application and let it be used for all the utilities. There's also programs at electric and gas utility that are specifically for low-income programs, and they include a lot of the things that you're including, right? Aerators, shower heads, because there's heating savings as well. But I'm just wondering if there's been any conversation of partnering so that those funds from the Water Utility Authority plus the P&M and natural gas company could go further and reach more low-income families.
Madam Chair, Councilor Feeblecorn, we do coordinate with P&M and Gas Company in the application process and coordinating kind of a one-stop shop, if you will, through nonprofit providers to do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Quesada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carlos, when do we start watering?
I say that based on March and what's been going on with precipitation, if you got somewhat of a drought tolerant landscape, you don't need to water yet. It looks like next week we might get a little bit more precipitation. Now, if you got some turf, you probably want to wait at least a couple of days since we got some rain today and water again, and not more than once a week, just to keep it healthy. In regards to trees, if we happen to not get this precipitation event or more in March or in the next 2 weeks, we definitely want to start taking care of our trees if we haven't done so in the winter season.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your comments. We were just talking about it because my husband asked me, and I just want to say that, you really do a good job in marketing in the water bill, because when we receive this, we kind of know when to start watering for the spring. So it's really helpful, and I think it goes a long way, because I'm usually one who throws away everything, and that's one of the things that I do save in terms of knowing when and how much we should be watering. So thank you. With that, we will move on. Thank you, Mr. Bustos. We'll move on to OB 22.5, and this is Water Smart Award for the City of Albuquerque Parks and Recreation. Mr. Bustos.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's pretty exciting to finally be able to recognize the City of Albuquerque and the Parks and Recreation Department and the work that they continue to do. So I want to recognize David Simon, Director, and Mark Chavez, the Associate Director, and all the superintendents, David Salas, Che Armijo, Eric Gourlet, and David Flores, for the work and all those hundreds of staff that you guys manage, and providing the right resource and training to seek the savings and continue to doing the work that you do. The City of Albuquerque Parks and Recreation, they have a hard task. They manage over 300 recreation sites. This includes the public golf courses and swimming pool facilities. In total, they manage thousands of acres of landscape and 25,000 trees. That was the latest count. We probably planted more in the last couple of years. But nevertheless, these are our areas. These are our common areas where we go with our families, where we go and recreate and have fun and leisure and walk. So these areas are really important for our community. So the Water Resources Conservation Program, it would like to recognize the City of Albuquerque Parks and Recreation for their significant gains and efficiency that resulted in 192 million gallons saved. That's one EPCD alone in 1 year. So, that's amazing to see. The previous year, they also saved millions of gallons as well, and the year before that. Kudos, and I appreciate the partnership that we have built over the years, and thank you very much. And we will be sending a Water Smart Award. This is a new program that we recently launched, and we felt like City of Albuquerque Parks and Recreation have earned this, and it was about time that we sent an award. So, David, you just gotta let us know where to send the award to.
I'll send you our number also.
David, did you want to say a few words?
Madam Chair, I hope you can hear us all right. We're joining you from our Parks and Recreation Water Conservation Headquarters Control Room on 4th Street Northwest. And, Madam Chair, members of the Water Utility Board, Executive Director Sanchez, our good friend and partner Carlos, and many of your other staff, I could just say that we're we're incredibly honored by this recognition. We really, really are. We're also honored to be your largest bill payer. So we will hope to keep up the conservation work and also keep the revenue flowing. But in all seriousness, it's very, very kind and thoughtful of the Water Utility Authority to recognize the effort. You know, we do have in the room some of the people that Mr. Bustos called out for special recognition, and they deserve that much more than I do. David Flores, our Deputy Director, Mark Chavez, our Associate, David Salas, our Golf Superintendent, and Shay Armijo, the Superintendent of our Park Management Division. And I do want to also, you know, really recognize so many of our frontline managers and staff, including our irrigators, whose daily work really is the hard work of water conservation. It really takes technology and smarts, but it really takes daily effort, and they're the heroes in this matter, along with this incredible partnership that we have with you and with our smart use partners. And I would say that, you know, we could easily be giving the Water Utility Authority and its staff an award because, you know, you've been outstanding as a partner. And having moved to Albuquerque, freely admit I'm not a native, but I moved here the first year of the water conservation program. And when you see the results that Mr. Bustos showed you, it really proves how sustained effort over time with smart policies and smart decision-making and investment, that's the kind of results it can produce. But your outstanding support and assistance for us has really made a lot of these water conservation successes for parks possible. So thank you so much for the recognition. You know, we have a long way to go. We really do. But I just want to say that nothing is more important for our city, really from a resource standpoint, than the work you do and the water utilities staff. And frankly, we share and are 100% committed to that with you. We are completely committed to that goal of wise use and conservation of water as one of the #1 highest priorities for our department. And if we can just keep at it and keep that steady work, keep the investment, keep using smart technology and staying current, and and most importantly, also sustain and improve this partnership that we have with the Water Utility Authority, I think we will continue to see outstanding results from that. And, you know, we're eager to do more. We're eager to do it better, you know, with your help. And we look forward to our continued partnership. So thank you so much for this honor. But the recognition really goes to these staff. So.
Congratulations. I want to say Shay, Mark, and David's.
Right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate all your hard work and, again, the partnership. So with that, I don't see any other business.
A participant has left the meeting.
Thank you.